Hey, thanks a lot for joining me here today. And Petri, why don't you introduce yourself?
Yeah, so I'm Petri Salonen from TELLUS International. I'm the founder and CEO of TELLUS. Been working within the Microsoft ecosystem for 12 years in many different formats. I started, in fact, as interim executive for European companies, helping with channels here in the US. So I've still been doing that for, I want to, besides doing educational sessions for Microsoft employees and Microsoft channel partners, I want to be real and executing things myself. I'm based out of Dallas, Texas, and it's going to be a hot day here today. It's sunny and beautiful. Yeah. And, I've been really, really fortunate to be able to work with Microsoft top global ISVs for years. I've delivered tens of workshops for the top brand names in channel alignment, software pricing, innovation, strategy workshops. And I've learned a lot. And one of the key things that I think I learned from the Inspire, which in fact I was also a speaker, part of a panel. The topic was going global, strategies for taking your Microsoft business globally. And it was a very nice session. Lots of interest, of course, from Microsoft partners to expand their business from their own native country. And that's a take, and you really have to do that. Mm-hmm. So I did prepare myself a little bit for this session with you, Christian. I run into a CompTIA, which, by the way, I track. CompTIA, it's an association that tracks the technology industry, mm-hmm. and they have a really recent study of, where the channel is going. The forecast is that the channel is going to be growing 4.1% during 2017. But what's interesting, if you look at the different areas that they expect to grow, and this is, by the way, back in your backyard, so it's enabling business processes, 43%, drive business outcomes, 39%, play a critical role in the strategy and redefine the business. So if you think back at the Inspire and all the messaging that we heard from Mr. Nadella and the rest of the team, it fits so well. And 73% of the industry executives that were surveyed in this survey are extremely or highly confident in applying technology to meet business goals. Think about that, 73%.
Well, I think that you've nailed it on the head there. I think the last couple of years, as we've been talking about business transformation, it's become, this kind of cliche thing now. What does that actually mean? But we've been focusing on the technology aspects of that. I think what that data proves is what you and I, what we know in our experience in our conversations, it's not necessarily about the technology. The technology enables a lot of that movement, but now going and figuring out, well, how do we change the culture of our organization, our processes, the business process, the business activities, actually look at what are the outcomes, how do we use the technology to direct the outcomes to where we need to go to see that kind of growth and productivity and revenue increases. And so that's why you see the data that people are now realizing, hey, we need to take what we have, that's the business transformation. How do we actually get to where we know we need to go?
Yeah. But what's also interesting, a couple of more data points. So 2/3 of these people that were surveyed, of the executives, they're saying that industry estimates indicate that about 2/3 of the IT products flow through or are influenced by the indirect sales channel. But when I look back at all the cases, the tens and tens of cases where I've been talking to Microsoft partners, for example, ISVs are really struggling. And I just did a report today of some of my work with Microsoft and kind of highlighted a few things. And I think one of the key elements that ISVs are failing is to align their business model with the channel. And there's some wrong expectations from ISVs. Channel partners, like if you look at the subscription revenue, that's not very interesting anymore. That's not the main driver. So the ISV really has to build the business case for the channel partner. I think that is going to also lead to failed channel partners. And I also love the messaging that came from Microsoft executives. If I look back at the, what is it that they are driving? They want organizations to be verticalized. And I've been driving that message for years already. You can't be successful unless you look at a specific vertical industry.
Right.
And that's
yeah. Right. The generalists go out there. Hey, we do everything. Well, then you're good at nothing. Right. And there's a lot of what came out of Inspire. In fact, I was just talking with somebody last night about walking around to some of them in the Microsoft area, the little kiosks with the various product team members, learning about the things that were announced, the bigger things, of course, but a bunch of the little incremental tools and services that are popping up within Dynamics, within Office, that are within Bing, an advertising site as well to help partners. There's just a lot going on, to help try to solve some of these problems. But again, there's work to be done.
Yeah, and I also like and this as well, is that it's been a little bit confusing in some of the cases for ISVs and channel partners to work with Microsoft. Mm-hmm. So I really, really liked, and I think I mentioned this to you in our meeting at the Inspire in Washington, D.C., that Gabriela Schuster, the keynote that she did on Wednesday, that kind of nailed it down. And I think it was very clear. It's obvious to me that Microsoft has been really thinking through how can we really build with, go to market with, and sell with in a more effective way. So from a partner perspective, it's hopefully going to be more clear than it has been before. And by the way, I've been running a bunch of GTM workshops for Microsoft Global ISVs, so it's been, I have a little bit of background in that.
Yeah. No, definitely, and it's so part of what I work with customers is I think we're when I talk about working with go-to-market too, mine is very much on the demand gen, like that side. It's the next step, and organizations need to figure out. It's an ongoing thing. It's not just hey, Microsoft is changing their sales organization structure and the various programs that are out there. Well, that Microsoft is reacting to changes that are happening in the world and what needs to be addressed. So, you as a business need to go and to align what you have today to into the channel and to understand how to best work and leverage the resources that Microsoft provides. Then you need to go and translate those things like, as you said, that verticalize your marketing activities as well, sales and marketing activities. What's going to be unique and authentic about your business? You can't just go and do the same thing that everybody else does. And that's kind of where they go and say, here's what we need to go and do. Here's the structure of this. Here's what we're going to go and sell. A lot of where I work with customers is that next step and say, okay, now how do we go shape this? The messaging and positioning, and then something that's actionable to go and do. So you can't just pay these kinds of things lip service. You really need to understand how this changes the way that you do business.
And the other thing that, Christian, I'm not sure what you feel about it, but the messaging from Microsoft was so clear that you really have to be verticalized. And my question would be, if you are not, and if you still are sizable type of organization, where are you going to fit into that? If you are not building IP for those vertical industries, if you like what we've found out, you remember there's going to be industry specific roles, so account team unit, account executives, account technical specialists, channel managers, industry architects, and industry solution executives. So if you are an ISV, that's where you need to be. That's your influencing channel. But if you are horizontal, not kind of addressing anybody, where are you going to be going? And that's really unclear to me at this point in time.
Right.
I didn't hear that. I didn't hear what the solution would be.
Well, and look, there are some ISVs that have figured that out, and I think it was last year where Microsoft was saying, and I'm trying to remember who made the statement. It may have been Satya that had said, every partner is a software company, and some people kind of went and scratched their head. It's like, hey, I'm a consulting company. Yeah, but most of the consulting companies that I work with, these SI partners, are developing IP. They're looking at verticalizing their solutions, and it may be that it's a combination of looking for those strategic partners, those other ISVs, and offering those and bundling solutions, and then building their expertise in those products, in those verticals, and that's the way that they're continuing to see growth. If you're just wanted, like, hey, we're a shop where we can build whatever you want, it's like, well, it's a good luck to that model. Even the large, huge companies like Avanade are going and developing vertical specific solutions that they can take out there and tell the story around that. I think it's a given to know if you're a shop that does all things SharePoint, for example, and if somebody wanted to be like, yeah, we want to go in a different direction, yeah, well, we can help you do that. However, here's what our expertise is.
Yeah. And my good friend, I run into Steve White. He's an executive at IDC, and I read one of his comments. I had a chance to exchange a few words with him at Inspire, but he's saying that this new verticalization strategy that Microsoft has, and the PAMs, the partner account managers, they really have to understand the industry. So it's also going to be a bigger requirement for Microsoft field to really understand and put their teeth into that industry. You can't be a generalist if you are a Microsoft person either. And the product teams, remember, even product teams will be focusing on these 6 vertical markets. It's a fascinating thing, and for you and I, there's going to be a lot of partners that we can work with, try to figure out what they should be doing.
But I think, and you brought up an important point too about Microsoft. I think something that has been a problem, my perspective has been a problem, is that most of the sales channel folks inside of Microsoft have not been very plugged into and aware of the partner community or the community in general. And that's something where you see, I think that there's a direct correlation between inside or outside of Microsoft of people who are hitting or exceeding their numbers and then are engaged with the partner community. I think there's a direct line there. If you it's always amazing to talk to somebody like in what region that you're in, Microsoft people, and so such and such with the major partners. Like I have no idea who those are. It's like you're kidding me. They're like the major partners, award-winning partner. You don't know who they are, and so. Look, I realize that everybody's busy. They've got their directives. They have, as a Microsoft employee, they've got their metrics that they go and hit, the individual team and in business unit metrics around that. But you have to keep a pulse on what's happening within your vertical, within your region, not just the list of here are my 5 approved Microsoft partners. That may be, for a Microsoft person, who you give your leads to when they come in there, but you need to be aware of who is actually playing within your region. Know who the movers are, what's happening, so you can kind of stay ahead of things so that you're having the right conversations with your customers. Sorry, that's a broader topic there about feedback for any Microsoft people listening. But if you're a PAM, if you're any kind of account executive, and you've got your region, and you don't know the tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 players within your region, then you're behind.
And the other thing, and I've seen the impact already because Microsoft already moved a little bit into the co-sell motion, that the compensation plans now are so much more aligned with the direct sales force and the channel partners. And I think that's going to be so forceful, so good for Microsoft compared with any other ecosystem. And those deals, the executives at Microsoft wants the field to work with their partners.
Right. There was a lot of news around that too. The co-sell investments, it was a big thing.
250 million.
Right. It's pretty huge. So, and so, I think that's going to really impact. There was great news out there. Microsoft just came out with their financials. They beat all the estimates, and a lot of that had to do with the Azure growth. They beating expectations around that, but to continue that growth trajectory, you're going to have to tap into scale that through the partners. Microsoft can't go and do it alone. So it's great that there's the new compensation structure. There's all these new incentives that are out there. I'm not familiar with every program that's out there. But the fact that they're looking at this as a $4.5 trillion space, that they need the help. So I think there's room to be creative there in your conversations with your Microsoft contacts. Say, hey, I've got these opportunities. What can we do?
Yeah, exactly.
But I like that though. They specifically called out, and I've got notes here about this from going through on, I think this was part of the day one conversation. I know that Gabriella hit it a bit with on day three as well, but that Microsoft, they used the word friction several times, recognizing the friction that they've caused by I don't know, the lack of cohesiveness in some of their internal programs and measurements, and trying to fix that. So while Microsoft has always talked about being partner-centric, and they have, it's been some of the things that they've done over the last few years make you kind of like, wait a second, how does this? Why are you not connecting with partners? I think that they're the moves that they've made, the announcements around restructuring, is very much back towards looking at how do we best leverage what is an incredible partner community. I don't know what the global number of partners, it used to be like 450,000 partners worldwide. Maybe it's over 500,000 now.
I heard there was some times when we talked about, when I was chairman for MCP, I think we talked about 650,000, but I think that's a little bit too much at the time.
Yeah. So whatever that is, there's a lot. Yeah. And so for Microsoft to not leverage that, I mean that's why it's Microsoft is the business technology platform and vendor out there. So
exactly.
Well, cool. Anything else stand out to you from the announcements? I mean, there's a lot that came out, but
yeah, one thing I would say, because I was running from one thing to the other.
Yeah.
This is my 13th partner conference, wow. And I was really focused on meeting with Microsoft people, with ISVs, going into the networking events. So what I have been doing this week is to follow up, making notes on my discussions.
Yep.
So that's my recommendation for all the participants. The other thing I would really, really highlight is go back into the videos, into the sessions. I'm going to do that. So I only did my own session, plus one where I have to go as a vendor.
Yep.
But it's time to go back, because that's really fresh materials. That's really everything, all those different units within Microsoft. That's where you learn, and that's how I learn about things. So that's my recommendation.
Yeah, doing the same. I've got the tweet jam that I'm running. If you're watching this and it's it's past the 27th of July 2017, you can actually go to storify.com/BuckleyPlanet. You'll actually see the entire summary of the tweet jam, where we're going to have about probably close to 100 people actively participating in the discussion, talking about Microsoft Inspire 2017 and the various announcements that are out there. But I always say the same thing. I'm doing the same thing. In fact, I have the various business cards that I have, that I've collected, that I've written notes on, and I'm following up with some of the actions from my notes and sending out slowly the waves of emails and saying, hey, here's what I got out of this. I'd love to do this, like the next step. And then I'm also capturing within OneNote as I saw clips like, hey, I need to come back to this session, or go take a look at this. Because I didn't sit in a single session, Petri. I was in meetings the whole time.
Yeah, that's smart.
Yeah, but
speaking of what you and I do, we can't afford to be sitting in sessions.
Exactly. It's but I mean, the benefit is it didn't used to be this way, but the fact that you can sit in your hotel room and watch the live stream of the keynotes versus walking over to the Verizon Center. I did that day one, but the second and third days I watched it from the hotel.
And Christian, one thing that I realized, and I even talked that to my wife, she usually comes the third day, and then we'll take a few days off. So I said, they cut it off. I mean, it used to be 4 days, so we all left on Fridays. Now people leave on, and that time that we're losing, we have to really run even faster. That's at least because I would have had to, I wanted to meet more people, so I just had to prioritize. These are my key people that I really need to find. And now what I've been also doing is to go back and say, hey, I saw you with a Gleam team. Sorry I couldn't talk with you. So, but it was fantastic. By the way, I love Washington, D.C. It's the best place for that.
It is a good location for it. I like Toronto for that event as well, but this convention center in D.C. is a much better layout than Toronto, especially for the Connect meetings. Having one place. For having the one place, remember that in Toronto, the two Torontos back, where the Connect rooms were in two different locations with one little walkway in between, and Oh, it was awful. So
Yeah, that wasn't good.
But anyway, well, thanks a lot for your time here. And again, if you want to get kind of a rundown of everything that happened at Inspire 2017, one thing I would encourage you to go and take a look at is just go and look at the Microsoft has the day 1, day 2, day 3 summaries that are out there. They actually the press package has the images, has the transcripts from Gavriella's talk, all of the keynote, the vision keynotes as well. And so you can go and read through those in detail. That's something that you can go and download. But definitely go take a look at, read through the list of all of the announcements. I mean, just around like the announcement of Microsoft 365, there's about a dozen things that are within that. So it's not just, hey, here's what this is, little description. So lot to consume here. But it's great talking to you. Enjoy your few days off, and we'll talk to you when you get back into town.
Thank you, sir.